Alrighty, so today we're going to do the season preview of Sporting KC, and really, this is probably the first team that I'll talk about in the season preview where I do think that the expectation is probably not going to make the playoffs, albeit, some Sporting KC fans would say otherwise. And then this is probably the first team in my season preview this series where it feels like this team is heading through a transitional period, even though some Sporting KC fans don't believe that. And a big reason why I think that is the case is look at some of the players that they lost this offseason. It feels like they are tearing down their old core, and it makes sense because the old core that they currently have was getting old, and not to mention after just a disastrous season that they had last season, finishing in 13 with an 8-7-19 record, finished with 31 points, and obviously did not make the playoffs. They obviously need some big changes in this team, and definitely look to trying to rebuild within this off season. And to their credit, there have been linked with some big signings coming into this team that it feels like the rebuild is going to be starting relatively soon, and they hope that this quick rebuild and this quick transition period will be good enough where they can get themselves back to competitive edge relatively soon. Because what we've seen with Sporting KC is that whenever they go through a bit of a rebuild, it's not relatively long. They go through a pretty quick reset, and next thing you know, they get themselves back to competitive edge. With that being said, their last playoff appearance was 2023. Their last playoff series win was also in 2023. They got that playoff series win against St. Louis City, which I'm pretty sure Sporting KC fans will definitely treasure it, because anytime when you get one over your bitter rival, especially in the playoffs, that's definitely feels just as good as winning an MLS Cup. That being said, the head coach of this team is still Peter Remis. He's still the longest tenure head coach in MLS since 2009, and it's not even close in terms of the next longest tenure head coach. I think the next longest tenure head coach is Brian Schmetzer. It was supposed to be Jim Curtin, but obviously Jim Curtin was fired from the union this off season, and I think with that firing, that maybe kind of give at least some Sporting KC fan hope that maybe this is finally the time that the owner group might do the right thing and decide to move on from Peter Remis, because I think last season I think fan disapproval of Peter Remis was pretty much at an all time high. I mean, there was a lot of Sporting KC fans not happy with the job that Peter Remis has done. And when you have been with a club for so long, obviously I think he definitely gets a lot of leeway because of the loyalty that he is with this team, and not to mention even a club legend as well. He not only being a head coach of this team, but he's been with this organization even uh, going back to his playing days as well. But at the same time, a lot of Sporting KC fans are saying that yeah, the tactics that he used throughout his tenure for Sporting KC, it just clearly does not work anymore in the modern MLS approach, and that I'm pretty sure a lot of Sporting KC fans are dying the fact that it's probably time for them to give a new fresh voice up there in the head coaching role, and see whether or not it will instantly guide them some instant success, and maybe even get them out of this rebuild quicker than they need to be. Now, the sporting director is Mike Burns. He's only been here since 2024, I think, after Brian Bliss decided to depart from this team. They, of course, hire a new sporting director in the middle of last season. Now, looking at some of the transfer that they have made so far, again, despite the fact that in terms of complete transfer, they haven't really done much. As we mentioned in the News of the Week episode yesterday, they are linked with a couple of players, and I even put them on the list too, because I think those are notable names that Sporting KC is very close in terms of trying to get, and players that are definitely going to be part of a new core that they're trying to fulfill heading into this upcoming season. But they signed a couple of homegrown players. They got Ian James, Jack Corkham, and also Jacob Bartlett. They also signed Mason Toy as a free agent as well, and we'll see whether or not if he is going to get a bowl of minutes for the Sporting KC side. It's going to be interesting to see. It's going to be a battle between him and Agata in that number 9 spot. And you notice I didn't mention Polito name because yeah, he's no longer with this team. He got transferred to Chivas as one of the big name that is no longer with this team. But other players that is no longer on this team include Robert Castellanos, Ozzy Cisneros, Danny Flores, Andre Fontas, who's out of contract, and then probably another big name, Tim Melia, no longer on this team. He's out of contract this season, and this was definitely a big decision that Sporting KC had to made this off season of are they going to renew the contract of Tim Melia? I mean, Tim Melia, he's going to get a statue built in front of Children Mercy Park, but with the way that last season was a season where you can clearly see Father Time was starting to catch up to him, and really for the past couple of years, you're starting to see the steady decline of Tim Melia. He's not as good as he was during the prime of his career, and yeah, they just kind of had no choice, but decided that this is finally the time for them to move on from their longtime goalkeeper. They also declined the option of Chris Rendov, and then they also decided not to renew the contract of Johnny Russell as well. So to reiterate what I said yesterday in my News of the Week episode, yeah, it looks like Johnny Russell is no longer on this team, and indeed, it looks like the replacement for him could be Shapi Suleimanu, which, by the way, going back to the players that they're going to sign, which I actually kind of skipped that. So guys that they're looking to sign is Manu Garcia, Shapus Suleimanov, and also Brian O'Kane. He of course is a number 10. That is Manu Garcia. Suleimanu is more of a winger. He's looks like he could be a direct replacement for Johnny Russell, and then Brian O'Kane is a center back could slot in terms of the back line straight away. So again, it's not like this Sporting KC team don't have replacement in place. They definitely have replacement in place, and they hope that these are going to be the option for them to go through not only this transitional period in a smooth process, but maybe faster than usual, where they maybe just maybe if things really worked out, they could be a playoff contender once again. But they also let go of Remy Voltaire, a longtime player in this midfield, no longer on this team, and as I already mentioned, Alan Polito no longer on this team, going back to Chivas this off season. Now, look at the first 5 games for Sporting KC. So they start the first game against Austin FC on the road before playing against the San Jose Earthquakes. Then they go on the road to play against DC United. Then they play at home against Minnesota, and then play at home against LAFC. So not a bad kind of start to the schedule. Yes, there are some tough team that is out there, and not to mention they're going to be facing a much more improved Austin team who really were cooking this offseason with all the big signings that they have had. But there could be a chance that they could get off to themselves a good start, which is something that again that's kind of been the problem for this team, especially a couple of years ago when it's hard to believe that they went the first 10 game of the season without a single win whatsoever. Now, looking at the last 5 games, they go on the road to play against RSL before playing at home against the Vancouver Whitecaps. Then they play against the Galaxy on the road before playing against Minnesota on the road, and then they play at home against the Houston Dynamo. So again, it's an okay stretch to finish the end of the season. It's very similar to the first 5 game where they do play some easy team, and then there are also a couple of tough teams that they have to play to finish the season. Now, looking at the strength of this team, I think it's still the attack, and I even wrote if they can get those signing done. So again, those 2 guys that I mentioned here, if they can get the signing done, I think this attack could still be decent. Yes, I know they're not going to have the likes of Johnny Russell and Alan Polito. Those two guys have been in absolute force alongside with Daniel Sherry in that front three. That kind of is the reason why Sporting KC has been such a deadly attacking team for the past couple of years. But they still have some good attacking talent on this team as well. So as I mentioned, with William Agata, I think he's going to be fighting his place alongside with Mason Toy in terms of being the short term replacement for Alan Polito. They still have Daniel Showery in there, which Daniel Showery, his career it's been very inconsistent. There's a good year, and then there's sometimes a bad season. Last season was a bad season. They're hoping that maybe this season it will be a good season as well. And let's also not forget they still have Eric Tommy in their team as well. Probably one of the most underrated deep line playmaker in the league. So it's not like this attack, even though with some of the key core pieces no longer there, it's not like they absolutely stripped to the bare ball. It's still a decent attack, and once they do add some of the pieces, it still could be decent and still be a team that can score at least 50 plus goal. But the weakness, obviously, it's got to be everywhere. Where else? I mean, the midfield, there are definitely question in terms of that. The defense, obviously, there's big question about that as well. There's been question about this back line for the past couple of years. This defense has been pretty bad, not just last season, but really for the past couple of seasons. And for a team that, when Peter Vermes took over this team, at least in his first ten season in charge, this was supposed to be one of the best defensive team in the league. And the fact that how things have really turned for the worse, really starting around 2019, yeah, that's got to frustrate a lot of Sporting KC fan. And it's also kind of interesting that it used to be how they had problem when it comes to goal scoring. Now it's kind of the opposite. They have no problem in terms of goal scoring, but it's the defense that is having the problem. And then of course the goalkeeping spot as well. Tim Melia no longer there. I'm assuming they're probably going to roll with John Polscam, who they of course he's been kind of the understudy for Tim Melia for the last couple of seasons. He also makes some appearance as well for the Sporting KC side, but I'm not convinced the fact that John Polscam can at least fill the shoes of Tim Melia. I mean, that's obviously big shoes to fill, but knowing some of the performers that Sporting KC have played when John Polscam was between the stakes, yeah, it was kind of a little bit shaky at best, and I wouldn't really consider him to be a guy that I would say he's kind of almost in terms of being a mid tier starter as a goalkeeper in this league, rather than a top tier goalkeeper as they have been with Tim Melia all these years. But that being said, in terms of the free big question for the Sporting KC side, obviously, will they show some progress on what should be a rebuilding and transitional year? My answer is yes, because again, in previous time when they do decided to rebuild and kind of also retool up a bit throughout the season, it actually turns out to be successful. They find some of their key pieces, and it seems like Peter Remise, as much as I know some of his tactics has been relatively stale, and his refusal to sub players, and also his mentality of running the team to the ground at time can really frustrate Sporting KC fan. At least he's been able to do well when it comes to getting some of these new signing and really hit them from the jump. Like when you look at most of the signings that Sporting KC has had, especially on the attack, again, most of them has been pretty much hit. So they're hoping that that is going to be the same case, that their attack will really at least drive this team to show some progress, and not to mention also the defense as well. Maybe, just maybe, Reese can at least get back to what he used to be, which is showing a team that is one of the toughest teams to try to break down, and a defensive uh starting kind of team that this team has been missing for a really long time in the last couple of seasons. Who's going to play in goal as they say goodbye to longtime goalkeeper Tim Melia? I say John Polscam mainly because again he is the direct replacement. But I would not be surprised if John Polscam doesn't do relatively well and he might look mediocre with the Sporting KC side, that they might think about looking for a goalkeeper as soon as the summer transfer window. Again, this is nothing knock on John Polscam. I wasn't really that impressed with him when he was in goal, especially during the time when Tim Melia was actually injured. And again, it's a big order for him to do, and it's also, I would say, maybe an opportunity to prove me wrong, and certainly prove a lot of people wrong, that he can be the guy to replace Tim Melia. But more times than not, when you trying to replace a goalkeeper that's been there for a very long time, and trying to replace him, and maybe you think that you have someone line up, more times or not, it just does not work out whatsoever. So yeah, be interesting to see whether or not if John Postcam can lock that spot, or they might even be looking for a number one as soon as the summer transfer window. And then I think the last burning question for the Sporting KC side, and this is pretty much the burning question of every Sporting KC fan's mind, is Peter Remise actually the right man to lead this so-called rebuild, and think that he can get this team back to competitive edge? Because again, one of the things I will say why Peter Remise is still with this team, despite the fact they have been kind of a bit mediocre the last couple of years. They've been very up and down when it comes to the last couple of years. They have some good years, they have some bad years. Is mainly because every time when things go terribly wrong, it looks like Remise is on the cusp of being axed from the steam. He somehow pull a great season, and that allows the front office to realize that, yeah, he's probably the right man to do so. And that's kind of what frustrates Sporting KC fan, with the inconsistency that they show in the past couple of years. That it feels like the front office kind of has this delusion of thinking that, well, they had a good season last year, they don't really need to think about firing Peter Mays, because they think that he's the right man to do so. And then reality smacked them in the face the next season, and they finish poorly once again. I mean, if the pattern continues, you would say Sporting KC probably have a good season, and that maybe is enough for the front office to keep him. But again, we'll see whether or not if that is the case, and especially with this rebuild as well. I think after the Jim Curtin firing, I feel like that might be a sense that we could have a sense that maybe no head coach is indeed incredibly safe in the job, and that's even with Peter Remis, and I know this Sporting KC side has and the front office has just almost an unlimited faith in terms of their current head coach. But it's getting to a point where we've seen it before with long term head coaches. When the time finally comes, you have to do it. You just simply has to say goodbye and bring down the chopping block. And in this case, for Peter Remis, if this rebuild and this retool and this transition year go terribly wrong, and once again they finish like where they are last season, there's got to be questioned the fact that is this really it? Is this finally the time where we see the longest tenure head coach in MLS finally get the chopping block, and finally something that Sporting KC fans been desperately saying over the years, bring a new face into this team, and hope that it's enough to re-energize this team, and get this rebuild and this new core that they're trying to form in to get themselves quickly back into competitiveness. But that being said, in terms of expectation, that's exactly what I said. Show some progress in this rebuild. Doesn't have to be necessary playoffs. I mean, if they can make it to the playoffs, I think that could consider it to be success. But there's no doubt they need to show some progress in this rebuild. And if they can show that progress, there's once again hope again for this Sporting KC fan base that maybe they can get themselves back to being competitive and be one of the team that for a long time this team have always been very close when it comes to winning MLS Cup. There's been some really good Sporting KC team even going back to when they last win the cup back in 2013. But the problem with all these teams is that they just never get the job done, and not to mention they also have that label of being big chokers in big games and miss major opportunity for them to go deep when it's being presented themselves. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure to like, smash the subscribe button. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this season preview. If you're a Sporting KC fan, what do you think is the strength, the weakness, the free big question, any expectation is heading into this season for this team. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure to like, smash the subscribe button. And yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.